mighty. Not because you want to, but you have to. Be bold and no time to be bashful. Grab life by the horns like a natural. Be sharp, be quick, and be agile. Never ever let a competitor catch you. Stay ahead of whatever is trying to pass you. Though it's not a race, sometimes that's how you gotta operate.
Hello and welcome. My name is Samuel Ray, and this is Night Runners, the demo. So I decided finally to just sit down and try it a bit ago. I had my eye on this for a while, never actually tried it out. Just trying to do something new with voiceover recorded over this. Still trying to find my feet on what actually works with the audience. There's things I want to do, but not enough time to do it all. And so I really could use your support if you enjoy this type of content. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit like and hit subscribe because that'll help immensely with just getting my videos out there more in the YouTube algorithm and helping me to grow, because at this point I kind of need growth in order to be able to continue doing this for much longer. I've been at this for 4 years. Come July, I think it's 19th, and well, I plateaued really hard. So it's just with the way my life is right now, I don't have as much free time, so I need something tangible to kind of justify putting more time in, doing bigger and better content. So, getting into the game here. So as it turns out, looks like you're someone who came to Japan to stay in a friend's garage / home, and essentially you were promised that you could drive one of his cars, but he says he sold them all. So now you gotta go and find a money stash, which from the get-go seems kinda just a little shady, like especially the way he was like, oh, gotta go. So, like, your friend's not even there to greet you. And he just calls you over the phone. And this takes place back in the, I think, 90s kind of time frame in Japan. So, definitely has some old school vibes. It took me a hot minute to find the money stash, but I eventually did. And so, that's a decent chunk of yen. I'm not entirely sure what 848 yen equates to in US dollars, but I'm gonna go ahead and look it up while we're recording this. So that comes to about $5,853 roughly. So anyway, so we got a little starter cash to go and buy a used car. And interesting thing about them in this game is each car has their own like conditions that they were sold in. So some might say like has an empty tank of gas because you do have to pay to keep the engine topped up. They also have, drivetrains, rear wheel, all wheel, front wheel. They also have transmissions, so if the car is automatic transmission, you are driving automatic transmission. You don't have to gear shift. If you get a manual, you have to manually change your gears. There is no two ways about it, so you actually have to be more mindful about which car you get. They have history, they have character, they have flaws, right? So I saw one that said airbags had been deployed. So like, just, I don't even know if that has any kind of gameplay implications at all or impact, but it's cool that each car has their own background and history because that adds character to cars. That's something you don't get in a lot of racing games, or especially not in racing simulators. And that's just a part of real life, right? When you get a used car, it has character already. It has stories, experiences that it went through without you, and then you are getting the car after said experiences. I think it's really cool. So then you got a BlackBerry type cell phone, which is totally late 90s. So this is this guy with his rich man coat. But he says that you both have a mutual friend, so it's your friend that you came to see. And said he had nothing. He owes me a debt. He said he had nothing. And yet you come out of his garage with a car. So what he does is he passes your friend's debt onto you, which is just a crappy situation, like, and then tells you don't skip town. So this is like some, like, I don't know, some mob boss type stuff, like your friend got into debt with the loan sharks, which is just, ugh. And so, not a great friend to kind of lead you into that situation and leave you there. So essentially, you are now stuck with his debt, and you have to pay it back by taking that money. I think it was like 5 million yen, a bit over 5 million, and you have to use it to make bets on races, and then win more money than you lose. But you also need to use money to pay for gas and upgrades and repairs. And so, yeah, it's super interesting. Essentially every single race you take part in is going to have a risk and reward, right? Some stakes. It's not just, oh, you race, oh, you lose, okay, you can just hit retry as many times as you want until you win, or whatever. No, you have actual stakes that last, right? You lose that money, you've lost it. Now you gotta win it back. So I was trying to get a feel for how the car drives. So far, this game is, or at least the demo, it's mostly just works with gamepad from what I could notice. But this really is the kind of game where you kind of want to see the car you're driving, I would say, just for the aesthetics of it. You're driving these late 90s JDM cars, and it's just really great design, really great era of car design, in my opinion. Late 90s, early 2000s, up until about, I would say, 2015. Now this game does an amazing job at selling you on a sense of speed in ways that most racing games don't. And I know a lot of sim purists will be like, oh, screen shake, it obscures your view, it makes it hard for you to see. When you're in real life, you're barreling down a road at this kind of speed, you're not going to be able to see things perfectly. So it's actually extremely realistic. Motion blur happens in real life as things whoosh past in your peripheral. You gotta find something to lock your eyes on. Usually, most racers lock eyes on the horizon. And it's just, yeah. Also, another cool detail is how the music speeds up the faster you're going, or it gets louder the faster you're going, which I think is pretty cool. So yeah, this has a very retro 90s, film grain, like it's been all being recorded on a camcorder back before phones had the ability to record video with any kind of quality. So you've got that film grain look, you've got the CRT kind of vibes, especially on the loading screens. You've got the phone that you pull up at the bottom corner being a BlackBerry, which are still sold in some countries, usually over towards what is it? Southeast Asia, I think. So, but, here in the US, nah, nobody's got BlackBerries anymore. You can't even really buy a BlackBerry or get phone service on it. And so this is a PA. This is a parking area. We don't really have these so much in the US. The closest would be like a rest stop on the highway. But they are much further and farther between than they are in Japan. And they're mostly designed for trucks, truckers, long distance truckers. Now, one thing I'm not a big fan of is the language. Like, why do these characters have to say who the F are you as the first thing when you challenge them? I get they don't know who you are. It just feels a little try hard, edgy, whatever. You don't necessarily need, I'm of the mind you don't need to have language to have it to be believable, but maybe that's just because I grew up in a household and environment where profanity was not encouraged, or it was actually discouraged, and a community where it was just never needed. So anyway, we're getting into our first race here. I'm loving the CRT camcorder vibes for this, and if you've looked at any old street racing videos, they always did that mosaic filter over people's faces and their license plates, so the videos couldn't be used to track you down. Now, I didn't know at the time, but this has a startup system where you have to flash your lights so that the guy in the middle will do it. Then you have to rev up your engine a bit, although I didn't know how to do it right, so what I did was I turned on the handbrake since I had false started at first and lost money for it, which is just crazy. Every mistake in this game costs you money. It's insane. So I was trying to get a good feel for controls because it's so dang dark. Like, it is really hard to see very far in front of you, especially when you're going at speed. And then I slammed into the back of that semi. And it said Sam has wiped out, but I could still go. And I think that's because in the demo, they didn't want to make it so easy to fail. I think if I had done that, the car would have just been wrecked. I think I would have lost the race outright. So, yeah, that was kind of interesting. The closest thing to this game, I would say, on the market right now is Tokyo Extreme Racer, which is a reboot from the people who made the old PS2 and Xbox 360 had one title in the form of Import Tuner Challenge. But I've heard that one feels very different from the other Tokyo Extreme Racer games. But regardless, this is that Tokyo Extreme Racer style highway racing, dodging traffic and just barreling down these more narrow highways. Japan has a very intricate highway system. And so you can't see very far in front of you. The street lights are not that bright, which I found kind of interesting. In a lot of the other games of this type, or most of the other games of this type, you can see much further ahead of you. It's much brighter, but I would imagine driving at night, I mean, your lights aren't going to get that much far ahead of you. So this does a good job of translating that risk that they'd had back in the late 90s era of Japanese highway racing. Regardless, this game gives such a great sense of speed and inertia. I really do enjoy it. It's really cool. It had me so tense. Like, I kid you not, a racing game hasn't made me this tense in a long time. Like, just the amount of tension of going fast and not being able to see super clearly to an, inhuman amount. But it's still being very much a video game. Like, you're not over here without any kind of guides, right? There's no need for a racing line because you got the arrow to kind of guide you. And then you can pull up the map like I just did at the bottom left corner. So, and it's an old school sat nav. Now I saw the red and figured that was the end, so I decided to just gun it. And you could hear those revs going up. It was beautiful. And as it turns out, as you do races, you increase your reputation in that particular parking area, because each parking area is controlled by a crew, a racing crew. And then you get money, of course, that you bet on or bet with. And then you get a night rep multiplier. So the more races you do in a single night, the higher your multiplier. But you can also pay a little bit of multiplier to quickly get back to the parking area instead of having to drive back yourself, reducing a bit of that risk, right? And speeding up your ability to do multiple races in a shorter amount of time. So you're trading multiplier for time, right? And I didn't know what it was at the time. I just hate yes. I had no idea what it meant. But hey, figured it out later after I read a similar message and decided to turn it down. So I quickly discovered that the way to figure out which cars you can challenge is you have to look for the mosaic blurred license plates. If the car doesn't have its license plate blurred, it is not a racer's car, it's a normie's car. And they all tend to be the same car. I don't know if that's just because this is a demo or if they're just placeholders as a demo game, but it took me a bit to kind of figure out that I was looking for the mosaic license plates. And then it gives you a loose indicator of how much money they like to bet with the dollar symbols. So this one was a 2 symbol, level 2 cost, and this guy also level 2. It also shows you their current rep level, the horsepower of their car, and what portion of the map you're going to be racing on. If it's point to point. Well, they're all point to point races, but this one's around a loop. And then, so you kind of end up back where you started, I think. So I'm racing the same guy I did before. He said, let me win back some of the cash you took last race. So, yeah. An interesting thing, too, is when you're on the acceptance portion, where you can confirm whether or not you want to accept the challenge or not, it's a short time limit you get. And, like, the screen shakes more to kind of add this, like, tenseness to the decision because you don't have forever to decide. They just... It seems like they're really going for a vibe of just kind of the seedy underground racing scene, high tension, high what's the word I'm looking for, high stakes, I guess, or lots of, why is the word escaping me, everything has ramifications, right? Consequences. And like a nice touch at the top, you can see in the rearview mirror, since it's dark, all you can see is the headlights. But just of the opponent racer. Now that is just like in Tokyo Extreme Racer, to my understanding. The only Tokyo Extreme Racer game I played is the PSP one. That was called Street Supremacy. And that one played very different from the usual Tokyo Extreme Racer game as well. So that is the most common comparison for this game. But this person decided to take things in a very different direction, and I can appreciate it, honestly. It was a lot of fun doing these races. I basically found myself looking straight ahead, trying to use just general peripheral vision to see where the cars and semis are coming. I hope they add more variety in standard, commuter cars, though. Hopefully they're not all the same cars. It's really hard to tell, though. There I had to squeeze through the guardrail, or guard wall, and the truck. And every time you hit something or scrape against something, the screen does this, like, blur effect that's like a staticky VHS. It's really cool. Very nostalgic. Maybe because I was a 90s kid, too, this just speaks to my nostalgia, right? My memories. But yeah, it's just really cool. And again, it's a factor that it can snowball a little bit. Yep, see, I would have been done there too if this wasn't the demo, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure how crazy the damage system will be in the final game. If crashes like that are just going to instantly end your race and then force you to go buy another car, or pay to buy another car, or pay to repair this one. I am not entirely sure. I haven't really been keeping up on the like development updates. Oh, and then that was a toll. So it's an interesting kind of conflict, because if you're going fast, you get a fine. So when you see a toll coming through a toll booth, you actually want to slow down and then crawl through if you're able. That way you can only pay a normal toll amount instead of getting a bigger fine. So again, more risk reward. You want to go as fast as possible, you got to pay the toll. It's just crazy how everything you do has consequences in this game. Generally tied to the money. And since that money is your lifeline for the debt, right? And you have a set amount of time to pay back the debt, win enough money to whittle down the debt number. It's interesting. It adds a certain pressure to you. And then Daisuke said, don't let it get to your head after you beat him. Like these guys. The game did nothing to tell me how to get the car going again after this, so I discovered that you actually had to manually turn on the engine, and then you have to click in the right stick to manually turn on the lights. This is a game I would love to play on my steering wheel, honestly. Like, I hope the final version has steering wheel support. I've heard it's a pain to configure your steering wheel on this thing. But I feel like this kind of game in first-person cockpit view, right? In driver view inside the cockpit, driving down the streets, barreling at high speeds, I feel like it would make me able to easier see what's coming up too. Because one thing that does do that helps to sell the sense of speed is how the car pulls away from the chase camera the faster you go, which just makes the car feel like it's going faster, right? Instead of being locked to it like like Gran Turismo's camera, chase cam, default chase cam anyway, where it's just locked at the set distance and almost like attached to it by a metal pole, you know, which just keeps it a little bit, I don't know. I get what they're going for in Gran Turismo. They want it to be a, they prioritized information, right? The player's ability to see what's happening, both to your car and on the track, and the turns coming up and the other cars and all that good stuff. So they wanted to focus on that. And yes, having a super rigid camera does lead to more precision in terms of the visual information given to you, communicated to you. But it also makes the cars feel so dang slow, which is why I like Forza Motorsport's chase cam more. But yeah, so I came into the the parts shop to customize the car. So I got a turbo. Well, I wanted to get a turbo. You have to kind of manage things yourself the way you would in real life. You gotta kind of buy the parts. I was kind of having trouble figuring out how to do it. So I was a little clumsy trying to figure out the menu here, but I eventually do get a handle on how to customize the car. So what I decided to do instead of customizing the engine first is I think I wanted to go more for suspension and handling, because I noticed in the earlier races that it was a little hard to turn the thing at higher speeds. I had to hit the brakes a lot, so I figured by giving myself better handling, I could first make it so that I could drive better. At least I think that was the decision I went to. Engine swaps is something you can do, but it's not available in the demo, called Prologue. Same with front end swaps for the exterior, which is how in Initial D they had the Cel-80, which was a Nissan Silvia with a S front with an S80 back or something like that. I can't remember. Either way, I made my purchase finally, and you get your parts in a box. And it's a round box because it was tires. So I had to go in and install it. And I said, yes, just go ahead and install it to all of them. So I got myself better grip, which is necessary for better acceleration. Because that's kind of where I am as a driver. I like acceleration and grip more than drifting. You know? So I swapped out the budget tires, and I guess that just put them in the box, so I had to decide where to just leave them. So I think I just decided to toss it in the corner. Yeah. So I can just go in that corner there. So I said acceleration first, and then I decided to go for, I think it was more handling with the suspension. No, it was engine. Okay. Right, because I noticed that as you increase boost, you decrease cooling and engine durability. So you actually got to manage like the stats. Like if you want increased boost or power, you gotta then mod it to have a better cooling and better durability. That way you don't blow the engine. And I find that really interesting. It forces you to actually be mindful of how you're going to mod your car, like in real life, but more simplified, right? And getting multiple parts also gives you a delivery cost. And so I installed the parts, and it's kind of cool. Like, it's not as in-depth as, say, was it Car Mechanic Simulator, where you're actually attaching everything bit by bit, but it is cool how when you get the parts, you have to go up to the car and install it. It's just, it does a little bit extra to make the car feel like yours, you know? It just really, instead of just getting car after car after car, like in Forza Horizons 4 and 5 especially, and instead of being able to get like all sorts of cars. Now, something I noticed at the top of the screen, it has an engine light, it looks like. It looks like the engine light is on. You can give it an oil change here in the garage, but it looks like the engine light's on, and I'm not sure why. And I don't know if you can even do engine repairs, to be honest. But regardless, what I was saying was only having one car and then customizing it, right? It makes it personalizes it more. It makes it more yours. And I think that's something that I've been missing in racing games. That more in-depth connection with the one car instead of just, you know, oh, I ran a few races, now I have enough money to get 2 or 3 more cars, or I ran 2 races, I started with a bunch of, you know, starter money and I can just buy cars right out the gate, or, you know, just a few races in after you start the game. It removes the connection, the player connection to the cars. Starting with just one car and having to customize it yourself to your likings, and having to take care of it, make sure it doesn't get busted, keeping it filled with gas, all that kind of stuff. It's really cool. So what I did was I took a little break. I had to do something else that evening, and then I loaded the game back up after customizing. I do like how it says good evening, Sam. Maybe it said good evening. It said good afternoon, newcomer the first time, because it was afternoon when I played it. And then I logged back in later that evening and said good evening, Sam. So it keeps track of your computer's clock and the name, the player name that you put in, which I think is pretty cool. And so, since I already customized it in the previous sit down, it's time to roll and use my newly customized car in some races. Now, I got lost for a solid like 10 minutes on the map before I finally made my way back to the PA. It was a little annoying. I mean, fortunately driving in this game is fun enough, so I didn't get super frustrated, but yeah, it was a little annoying how I got lost on the way to the PA, Tatsumi PA. At this point, I had figured out that I was looking for the blurred out license plates to see who I could race. Now this is a demo, so it only gives you a handful of people to race. So I decided to race a new guy this time named Keisuke. And then again, he has to say the exact same opening line, which I just don't like. Like, why do you have to throw F-bombs? There's no need for that. But I don't think that aspect of the game is going to change, unfortunately. I am curious to see if the other racers I haven't raced yet say the exact same thing when you challenge them for the very first time. I would hope there's more variety in dialogue in the final version, and that not every character is going to say that same exact line with the F-bomb every time you first challenge them. A little more creativity in the dialogue writing, please. So this was an interesting one. This was a drag race, and I didn't know it at the time, but I think that's a mini game where you can heat up the tires, where you don't want to heat it up too much, I would assume, but you want to heat it up enough that you have better grip. And then at this point I also had started to kind of figure out how to do the starts, but not quite yet. I did figure out how to rev up the engine. It only revs if you're holding the brake down, but at that time I also had the handbrake on. And so this was an interesting one. It's a drag race, so it's a mostly straight-ish path, but you're going the opposite direction of traffic, which makes it so much more high risk. And I would assume that if you're playing the full version of the game, you're one big wreck and your car is total. Now you got to spend money on a new car. And if you don't have enough money from winnings alone, then you got to dip into the debt and increase your debt instead. And so you got to be real careful when you're driving. So real interesting stuff, honestly. So this one was a best 2 out of 3, which I didn't realize when I first challenged him, but it makes sense being as it's short drag races down these tunnels. So they decided to make it 2 out of 3, and I don't think you're going down the exact same path both times. I'm actually not entirely sure about that one. But yeah, you see, tire temperature, I think it goes up and down depending on how much you're putting on the throttle. Which I find interesting. So there's a lot of thought put behind this game, and this is just the demo. So there, once you hit a certain speed, then the music kicks in. And then I decided to run this portion inside the car. Now, there's no steering wheel and no hands on the steering wheel and turning steering wheel, which a little unfortunate, and it doesn't look like the gauge cluster in there works either. I'm not sure about that one. It's kind of hard to tell because I was just flooring it. So I do hope that they're able to get all that working, just to improve the experience of driving inside, especially if you decide to use a steering wheel with this game, which I feel like it would be so fun to use a steering wheel in this game. I also hope that they can introduce a replay system for the races. That way you can watch it from the outside. That way I can have the best of both. I can play inside the cabin using my steering wheel, but then I can have the replays for the recording, for the content. I feel like that would be the best way to handle it. And just save the replays for the races themselves, right? The challenges. I'm okay with that. Now, I'm not sure why all these semis were stopped in the road there. And then this is when I first noticed the refuel option. I'm pretty sure. And then you have to choose, do you want a lower or higher octane amount? Higher octane gives better performance for the same, amount of time. I figured I was at a lower level of opponents, so I'm not gonna waste the money on higher octane, not until I get to the stronger people. And so the map's quite interesting. I decided to try out the fast travel option on here. There we go. And then once you get the text, then they offer you to do it for a cost. And I decided to save my money instead of paying for convenience and just drive back. Especially since at this point, I thought I was getting a better handle on the map, but then I kind of got turned around. So I'm going to go ahead and just skip this portion. So So yeah, it took me a few minutes to get back to the Tatsumi PA. So they're run by a crew called G Company, as they said multiple times, but I do like how it keeps your record and everything. Like I said, everything has consequences and repercussions. Your records are permanent, your losses and wins are permanent. You lose some money, you better win it back. You lose your car, you're gonna have to probably buy a new one in the full version of the game. Like, I just find it real interesting. So I was just looking and I was seeing basically the same names. It looks like Sakura's the toughest one in these PAs. I have yet to challenge her. So I decided to go ahead and see about challenging Daisuke a third time. It says, I saw your latest win, you just got lucky. Hockey punk. And the same 330,000 yen wager. And interesting thing, you get rep just for accepting the challenge. So I think that's another aspect of the risk reward, is doing more races in the same night while you're using up more gas and you're going to have to pay for the gas. Getting that multiplier up, right? And then I think that would affect the rep you get just from accepting challenges. And so you can really, really multiply your money by just getting that multiplier up and then just challenging a bunch of people. As long as you can do so without wrecking your car, that is. And okay, it looks like the gauge clusters do in fact work inside the car. Yep, so yeah. And it's interesting, it puts you inside the car at the start of the race so that you can see the flashlight indicator. But yeah. You can really see me trying to make little adjustments. And then I decided to do this one in the first person, I think, the majority of the race anyway. You still can see a decent amount of screen shake. It's not as much as when you're outside the car, but it's enough to really, I mean, think about it. If you're barreling down the highway or any road, even a drag strip, your head's going to be rattling and bobbing like this. The vibrations of the car alone will do this to you, not to mention vibrations coming through the car, you know, by the tires on the road, rubber on the road. So like, yeah, you're not going to have a perfectly static, still camera driving a car fast in real life. Inertia forces are going to work on your head, and that's going to affect your vision. So I actually really like that they added all these effects to the game to sell that sense of speed in a realistic fashion. And then I got sandwiched between the truck and the wall there, which was crazy. I thought I could fit. Here I was trying to balance speed and control. But that was after I had also customized for better handling, better grip, and I had strengthened the engine a bit and added a improved turbo. And then here he comes. Watch out, watch out, watch out! Just holy crap. My man came barreling through. He did not care. Yeah, it was crazy. Also, the music in this game's pretty good. Like, yeah, it's pretty decent stuff. A lot of D&D, a bit of funk, a bit of electro type stuff. Like, it's a nice little mix that I could feel is believable for what they would be listening to while racing. But the songs are in English. So yeah, I decided to drive back to the PA again. So we'll go ahead and skip the travel. And so we're back in Tatsumi, PA. I've raced Daisuke 3 times, and I've raced Keisuke once. 4-0. And so I decided to race Keisuke a second time. And this time it's not a drag race. Or no, wait, that was the third Daisuke race, wasn't it? There's an additional racer here, Shota, who seems to be the actual strongest. A rating 3 for the money required to bet. So, 350,000. Interesting detail about the timer of the call on the bottom left, counting up. Nice little details there that just make this very immersive. Which, in this day and age, like I said earlier, is stuff we're missing in a lot of racing games that come from the bigger companies like EA or Ubisoft. Or even Microsoft with Forza. So just see here, I finally figured out that you have to hold the brakes and the gas, and then you have to release the brake at the right time. I still hadn't mastered the timing on starts yet, but fortunately I had enough acceleration, and I decided to test out what would happen in the game if you decided to drive real aggressive. I wanted to see what would happen, and he started pushing back on me. So like, they actually react in kind, which is kind of cool. It gives them personality. Like, I started pushing on him and he didn't just give way or take it and then slow down, but he started pushing back and then shoved me into the wall. So if you're overly aggressive with them, they will be aggressive right back, which I'm sure can lead to some crazy crashes if you're really trying to crash the other person. And I wonder if that will change how they interact with you later. I don't know. That would be kind of cool, though. And the kind of stuff you would see from indie games like this. So I was really trying to read farther ahead on the road this time so that I could properly weave through traffic. Fortunately, since you're doing night racing, the highways are not packed like they would be during the, commute home from work or to work. So I can totally see why that would be when they would be racing. Also, I realized that earlier, how dark it was. It was just because of that particular stretch of road. See, some of the stretches of road, the street lights are just darker and more like amberish or reddish. And then in some areas like this, you get brighter ones. And then another wipeout, which probably would have wrecked my car in the full game. So there's so much risk to every choice you make. It's going to be real interesting. You know what it actually reminds me of, though, is Armored Core. Especially the older Armored Cores, where you have debt, or not debt, but you have funds, and you have to pay for everything. Ammunition, replenish, or ammunition used during a mission, repairs on your AC at the end of every mission, and eventually, if you hit 0, it becomes debt that you owe. And you won't be able to purchase parts while you're in debt. but you still have to complete missions to get yourself out of debt. So it's similar to that, except you're using the debt money for betting to win back more money. It's a very interesting Armored Core-like system. You see, as your money climbs above the amount that was given you for betting money, and that essentially, I think you have to like double the betting money essentially in order to pay back the debt. So yeah, very interesting game, very interesting game. I really like it. The one thing I wish is that they weren't throwing F-bombs every time you challenge them for the first time. Honestly, the only gripe I have with the game. Other than that, it's so good, and it's really what has been missing from games, racing games lately. It's just that connection to your car. You buy a car, you maintain it, you upgrade it. You really connect with it while using it. Like, honestly, this is what I want to do with a real car in real life. I want to get me a cheaper car, used, and, you know, over time, mod, upgrade, restore, or repair, and just customize it, really make it mine. And so this game kind of scratches that itch, though, in game form, in ways that only games like it and Tokyo Extreme Racer can. Especially since most racing games, especially nowadays, don't let you connect with one car long enough, that you just get to buy car after car after car, right? Or in the case of like Forza 5, you're given cars. So yeah. Maybe I should pull up one of the older, like Need for Speeds, like Carbon or something. But even those, I think you were able to sooner get another car faster than nowadays. I'm not sure. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed this. It's a really fun game. And, you know, if you want to see me play more of this, then make sure you like and subscribe and all that good stuff to help me out. And to let me know you want to see more of this content. So this has been Samuel Ray. And yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day. And I hope to see you in the next thing I upload. Later.